Between the politicians and the screenwriters.
Our very big early hit was political.
I was quite enamoured by how good looking some of this.
And quite established, quite politics with a P.
But what people had really revelled in was seeing politicians squirm.
Absolutely terrible.
And it has to take you into places that are normally closed to the average punter.
I was drawn to politics very young. I think it was spoken about quite a lot in the circles I was mixing in. At the time of the Labour Wilson government, I became very interested in it then. As for writing about it, I suppose everything that Maurice and I ever wrote from the earliest days were political. I mean, Shine on Harvey Moon was as political a series as you could ever find. A man who comes home from the war to a family that think he's dead, who finds his way in life in immediate post-war England, London particularly, and who becomes a Labour councillor. So from even the very early days, our very big early hit was political. And I think it continued to run through our work, but not in a political with a big P way. I mean, what we were writing about, what we were saying was political of its time. By the time we came to create Alan Bastard, which was almost at the beginning of Thatcher's third reign, we believed that what we were not seeing, but there were, but not very many, was completely corrupt but non-hypocritical members of Parliament. And that was what Bastard was meant to be, and was. And I believe that real politicians saw Bastard, wouldn't miss Bastard, and started working out how they could be like him. Because I don't think there were that many. I think the sleaze that came in the major government of 91, 92 really learned their craft of sleaze and corruption from Alan Bastard from 87 to 90, around that time. The problem was, unfortunately, and I never thought I'd see this, was that the Labour Party learnt it from the Conservative Party, who learnt it from Bastard. So the real corruption started to kick in with Tony Blair's new Labour Party, a party to which I belong, or at least I belong to a Labour Party. I'm not sure the new bit has anything to do with me. And so Bastard would actually have taken the present expenses row very, very much further. And instead of claiming for duck ponds and ornamental garden figures and indeed new roofs, he would have gone for yachts and private aircraft. Because if you're going to be corrupt, corrupt big. If you're going to tell a lie, tell a big lie. And so what I think is that we have little politicians because they haven't mastered the art of corruption properly. Bastard would have been the man who would have been the consultant to fiddling your expenses. He would have been the man that would have actually managed, were he to be in the new Labour Party, which he well might be now, how to actually riddle the Conservative Party through scandal, so much so that they are unelectable. There is nothing Bastard wouldn't do. Were we writing Bastard today, I would definitely have had Bastard set up Cameron in a paedophile case, which would make him unelectable. It would be the only chance, I think, that New Labour would have of serving a fourth term. Well, someone would have to do that, and that somebody seems to me to be somebody, or not somebody like, but Alan Bastard.
Because they say true words are said in jest.
Yes.
And while The Statesman is ostensibly a comedy, it's...
I think it was more than that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a disturbing element of reality in it. You can recognise a lot of the devices and a lot of the schemes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which you might laugh at, but it's an unsettling kind of feeling.
Well, as we always say, the good thing about Bastard was he wasn't a hypocrite. He told it as it was. If they said, Alan, you don't need another £1 million, and he'd say, well, I do need another £1 million because I'm a Conservative and I'm very, very greedy. That truth would not be said by a real politician because they hope to be re-elected, probably. Bastard would be re-elected legitimately or illegitimately. He was originally elected by trying to murder both the people standing against him. He only succeeded in murdering one. The other was in intensive care for a long time throughout the election, so therefore he was elected. But even from that very beginning, you could see that this man would stop at nothing for power. And yet he didn't want ultimate power, because ultimate power didn't pay well. What he wanted was backbench power, because that's where you can do all the damage. And if you know where the bodies are buried, and Bastard's first task when being elected to Westminster was to discover where they were buried, he didn't want to be chief whip. He'd have been a wonderful chief whip, but he didn't want that. You can't make money as chief whip. You can only claim more expenses than you're entitled to, as we said. But he was talking about big money. I mean, big money. He dealt in millions. And if it meant killing somebody, then of course he'd kill them. Just leave Bastard for a moment. We also wrote the 4 films about Oswald Mosley, who also wanted that kind of power. I'm not suggesting he was corrupt. He was misguided. Certainly misguided. But in many ways there were similarities between Mosley and Bastard. Not that we were conscious of that when we were writing Bastard, because Mosley came quite a bit later.